too, I was petrified that it was going to come back. Petrified that they were going to find, every time I went in, they were going to find tumor marker somewhere else, or they were going to find the cancer. Oh, no, it's no longer in your breast. It's somewhere else now. So for many years after that, I mean, I'm not as petrified. I'm closer to the 10-year mark, but yeah, I'm therapy and my faith.
Welcome to Healthy Living, Wellness and Prevention, Medical Innovation, the informed side of care. Welcome to Baptist Health Talk.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Johanna Gomez. Welcome back to a new episode of Baptist Health Talk. Today, I'm joined by two fellow breast cancer survivors, but probably the most inspiring women you will meet in your life, Tamara Rodriguez and Clara Pablo. They'll be here to join us and take us on their journey as survivors and how we've managed to do life, as they say, after a breast cancer diagnosis. Ladies, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you here. I know both of your stories very well. It's an amazing story and a journey that you guys continue to every day just keep adding beautiful things to. But for the viewers and the listeners out there, take us back to that moment. Tamara, I'll start with you. How old were you when you were diagnosed? And what was something is not adding up?
Yeah. So I was 35 and I'm actually celebrating 10 years. So I just turned 35.
Congratulations.
So thank you so much. In October too. So it's crazy because when everybody's thinking about Halloween in October or getting their mammograms, like I just keep reliving that moment 10 years ago. What happened? I had a lump that probably took a couple of months for me to even think about. Like I thought it was like a mosquito bite.
But did you feel it?
I did. Oh, I saw it. It was right here.
It was protruding.
Yeah, it was protruding. It was right there. And I was like, I really brushed it off as a bug bite. I was like, I probably got it because it was during the summer. So I was like, it's probably something. So fast forward to like 3-4 months later, I mentioned it to my mom and I said, hey, I think I have something here. And she saw it. And then she was like, well, why don't you go get it checked? I'm like, it's probably nothing. And you know how we are. We're busy. We got the kids. We're moving. We got stuff to do. We don't have time to wait. And we surely don't have time to pause, right? Yeah. And stop. And so she kept at it and she goes, go see a doctor and get a prescription for a mammogram. So I did. And
right, because let's just remind everybody, you cannot get a mammogram.
No, you can't just walk in and be like, I want a mammogram.
Yeah.
But I did.
Under the age of 40.
I said, I want a mammogram. And he was like, no, because you're 35 and the guidance is 40. You have no family history. So I can't give you a mammogram and then a prescription. And I said, I need it. And he's like, no. So I was like, okay. And I left. And my mom, thank God, was like, well, I need you to go back. Oh, and I was like, but he's not gonna give it to me, Mom. And I got stuff to do. I gotta keep moving.
I gotta go. I got life to live. I got kids to raise. Like, what are we doing here?
And she's like, you gotta go. So I went back and he said again, he was like, Tamara, but you're gonna have to pay out of pocket because insurance not gonna cover it. I'm like, whatever, let's go. I just gotta go. Let me have it. And so he gave me the prescription and it started out by going in to get a mammogram and then calling back, and then they're like, okay, now we need you to do a 3D, and then calling back a couple of days later, okay, we need you to do an ultrasound. So then it kind of felt weird, right? Why do they keep calling me back? And then finally, they're like, well, we need you to come and do a biopsy. So I was like, okay. So I did, and a couple of, I would say, days later, only because I kept calling, right, to be like, can I get, they'd say, it's going to take a week. It's going to take a couple of weeks. I was like, no, I need it now. Right. Kind of thing. And I'll never forget October 31st.
Wow.
On Halloween. Wow. I'm at work and I get the call, close the door of the office, not knowing, what I was going to hear. And the doctor,
told you the news.
Said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Before he even said, right? And it was a doctor that didn't want to give me the mammogram, which by the way, I love him. We're still very close. I think it's just about, what they know to say,
No, but you also don't fit the criteria of someone who would be diagnosed with breast cancer. And I think that I had that same exact, experience where they're like, but you'll be fine.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're fine. You don't have family history. Right. You're under the age of 40, so you should be okay. So I think that's pretty much a normal thing that they go about. Was that your experience? How did you
Mine's
learn,
the
Clara?
opposite of Tamara, actually. Wow. I was 36 when I got diagnosed. 7 years ago exactly.
Congratulations on
Thank you, 7. I'm almost there. I can't wait to say 10. I really can't wait. I'm excited.
We're going to be there. We're going to be there supporting you.
I can't wait. And I was the opposite. I was watching television with my boyfriend at home, and I just went to scratch. I'm like, I felt something, and I'm like, can you feel it? Mine was up here though. Mm-hmm. It was like at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. I have a very close relationship with my gynecologist. I texted him at that time. He's like, come tomorrow morning. I was at his office at 8 a.m.
Wow.
He felt it, and he sent me to do a mammogram. I did a mammogram and an ultrasound by 2 p.m. that day. By the time they did the mammogram and the ultrasound, they told me, we found something. We need to do a biopsy. I'm like, I'm not leaving here until you get it done. I called my mother. I thought it was a cyst. Right. Again, I'm like, there's no way this is a tumor. Right. Yeah. I call my parents and I'm like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you this, but I just get a mammogram and an ultrasound. They think I have a tumor and I need to get a biopsy done. So imagine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that was like a very quick 24 hours.
I was diagnosed within 48 hours of feeling my lump.
And do you think it's because you pushed?
I was adamant. Like I did not stop. Like I was not leaving there until they did my biopsy.
Okay, take me back when you were on your bed, watching TV, on the couch, wherever, with your boyfriend, and you actually felt it. Did you think for that 1 second, and when you felt it, this could be it?
Never.
Like, this is cancer.
Never. I thought it was a cyst. When they told you to do a mammogram.
Never.
No.
When they told you to go do a biopsy, you still were in denial.
When she's, the moment I got scared is when I looked at her and I go, okay, let's do a biopsy, but it's a cyst, right? And she looks at me straight in the face and she's like, it's not a cyst, it's a tumor.
Wow.
And in my experience, I truly believe it's cancer.
Wow. That's a lot.
Which, by the way, something even brave and daring for her to say, because she's not in that position
of course that's how clear it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's when I said, that's when I looked at my mom because she had already made it. My father drives very slow, but that day he drove very fast to where I was. Thank you, Dad. And it was a women's center, so they couldn't allow any men to come in. So my mother was there holding my hand. I looked at my mom. I saw it in the nurse's face. I saw it in the doctor's face.
Wow.
And I looked at my mom and I go, Mom, I have a bad feeling about this. Like, this is not going to come back good. And I still get choked up. And she looked at me and she goes, it's okay. We got this. Yeah. And my mom cries over everything. And her strength at that moment gave me so much strength. And you guys are moms, so I know you understand it. And it just helped me out so much to be like, she held my hand as they were, they lift your arm. She was holding my hand back there. And I knew I was going to get the diagnosis. I already knew it. And I just felt a sense of peace at that moment that we were going to be okay. And that was like our entire thing throughout my whole process. Was my whole family is like, we got this. That was our thing. And that's what carried me throughout throughout their love and our faith in God and the love that we have as a family and the strength that they gave me. But yeah, so we did the biopsy. 24 hours later, again, my gynecologist, Dr. Cardenas, you are the best. He had his nurses call every hour because I was like, this is a Thursday. Wow. I am not waiting until Monday to know if we have cancer or not. So he called every hour and they made sure Friday morning at 11 a.m. He called me and gave me the news.
Where were you?
I was sitting by myself in the sofa.
At home?
At home. And he called me. And when he called, I knew it.
You saw it?
I saw his name and I'm like, here we go. And I wanted to take the call alone. I took the call. I sat on the sofa. I took the call and he told me, he goes, okay, news is not so good, but we're going to get through this. And again, he's amazing. And he told me, he goes, it is cancerous and we want to start you on, I need you to go see an oncologist and everything else. And I remember sitting down on he's like, and I opened my computer, he goes, close your computer. Because I was going to start Googling. I'm like, what is my cancer called?
Isn't that a
Google.
reflex to just kind of Google?
He's like, get off the computer. Like, don't. But the worst part was, how do I call my family?
Yeah. And verify the news.
Tell them
that you already had an idea that you were going to
and tell them, Thursday night, my family and friends, they all came over after I did my biopsy. And I actually recorded a video of myself sitting in the bathroom by myself and just thinking about everything that was happening. And they all came over and it was just like, we all cried. We all did what we needed to do. But Monday morning, my friend Wendy Grant, who may she rest in peace, who unfortunately lost her battle to breast cancer. she got me an appointment at MCI. And Monday morning, I was at MCI with 11 people at the appointment.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And that was it the entire time. I did not go through it alone, thank God. And I'm so grateful for every single one of them.
Yeah, I also did not go through it alone. My family, my friends, they were there supporting me the whole way through. Tamara, you're one of them. But there was that moment when you get that call and you see that number and it's like, I get goosebumps just even thinking
I have
about
goosebumps
it.
thinking about it.
You can it just takes you to that moment. It's for me, I'm just speaking on my behalf and I'm curious for you. Did your life kind of just flash right in front of your eyes? Like everything just like stopped for a second and just say, oh my God, this is really happening. Yeah. Like talk about your world just flipping upside down. Was that your experience?
Well, yeah, absolutely. For me, that was it. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right?
You go there.
There's just because growing up, because cancer wasn't discussed openly, because it was the C word or they whispered cancer, right? So it wasn't something that I understood clearly what the prognosis was or anything. So for me, I'm going to die and I'm going to leave my two, at the time I had a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
That's the thing, you're a mom.
Right? So the only thing I thought about was them, right? So knowing that I was going to die is like, okay, it sucks, but it was really, these kids are going to grow up without their mother.
Right.
That's what went through my mind.
Right.
And I don't know that it stopped until after the surgery.
Right.
So yeah, your life stops.
So you just brought up your surgery.
Yeah.
Everyone's journey is different when they get diagnosed. I've had so many people call me after my diagnosis and say, well, what did you do? And I said, I'm going to tell you what I did. But this changes. It's completely different. Yes, we're all under the age of 40. And I think that one thing we can agree on is that if you are diagnosed under the age of 40, it's pretty intense. It's aggressive. Majority of the time, the cancer that you get is aggressive. So what was your journey like? We'll start with you, Clara, of what you had to do in order to get to this side.
I mean, like mine was stage 1, thank God. We didn't know exactly when it started because I was getting mammograms. I was getting checking all the time because I had family history.
Okay.
So in my mind, I was always looking out for it. I don't know why I was.
Did you just miss it?
I don't know. I don't know if it just came because I even asked my doctor, I'm like, you checked me a year ago or just 6 months ago. Like I came from my annual. Like, did you not feel it?
So was it aggressive? It was probably aggressive.
They never really told how like aggressive it was or anything. It was stage 1, which is great because you caught it early. That's why I started my campaign to Toca Tocarte, because you have to check yourself all the time, and we'll talk about that eventually. But it was a series of lumpectomy, radiation, 30 sessions of radiation. My breast got completely burnt. Like I still don't have like feeling sensation in it. Yeah, it still hurts once in a while. I still have radiation recall. Believe it or not, I had it like not even a year ago. And it's stuff that you don't really talk about, the long-term effects of it. But I did that. I did the lumpectomy or reconstruction because my doctor said I was too young and I needed to have, a reconstruction and be happy with everything. Because my tumor was in a place that it was, if I just removed the tumor,
right, it would have like
it would have the concave. And then this is the worst part. I did 5 years of Zoladex injections that had the worst side effects.
What were they?
Hot flashes. I was having like 17 a day for 5 years.
Wow.
I'm counting 17 because one day I'm like, I'm going to count.
I'm going to count to see how many I'm having.
I didn't count them every day, but pretty much there. The hot flashes were the worst. Some of them came with nausea. Some of them I would like sometimes just feel like I was going to faint. But it's not only that, it was just the inconvenience of my life. I'm in a music industry. I travel every single week. And no matter where I was in the world, I had to come back every 28 days to Miami to MCI to get my injection. So it was like a reminder. For 27 days, I didn't think about cancer. And then on the 20th day, it reminded me of like,
there we go.
You're still here. You're not, still got you.
When people think though of radiation, they're like, well, it's better than chemo. Yeah. But there's really no better than anything.
No. There isn't, because they don't explain to you, for example, the fact that I'm still 7 years later, still dealing with radiation recall or still have sensitivity on my breast. I still have pains once in a while.
And the burns that you had to deal with.
I had bad burns. you know, and
the mental, I think too. The mental.
Which we'll get to the
draining.
mental. We'll get to the mental because I think the mental is just a whole other ball game. What was your
and the tamoxifen? I'm still on it. I have 3 years left.
Yeah. Right. How long did you have to be in
10
that?
years.
10 years in total.
I just stopped taking it too.
Just
there was a couple pills left. I'm like, no.
Oh, thank God.
I'm
done.
Happy cancer anniversary to me. I'm not finishing.
I lost 2 pills or no away. Yes.
So what was your journey like?
So for me, I didn't have the option of the lumpectomy because it turned out I had multiple tumors in that one breast. And so the doctor really wanted me to do a mastectomy. But then at that point, she said, look, honestly, go ahead and do a double mastectomy because there oftentimes it spreads to the other breast. And then we don't want you to come back in 10 years.
Yeah.
So it was a double mastectomy. After that, I had to do the reconstruction. But prior to the reconstruction, I got another phone call that kind of changed my life, which was, hey, we tested because mine was estrogen. I don't remember if
mine's
yours was.
ER positive.
So mine was estrogen, fueled by estrogen production. And my doctor tested or sent the tumor to be tested, came back that it was very aggressive and had a high chance of recurrence. And so because of that, they wanted
tumor markers. Right?
They wanted me to do chemotherapy, which, mentally, I thought that the double mastectomy, which was already a big deal, was going to be it.
Yeah.
So when now you have to do chemotherapy and have to deal with the side effects such as losing your hair, that was a different story.
How many chemotherapies did you have?
So it was 6 months. I don't remember the number, but I do remember that at some point, it didn't go well with me. And I actually I passed out. I had to do a blood transfusion. So then it became going from every 2 weeks to every week. So it was every week for 6 months, right? And so by the time you feel better, because by doing it every week, they were doing a smaller dose, right? So you don't feel good for 3 days. And on the 4th day, you're like, yay, I'm back. And then back in, but whatever. I don't want to complain about it because I'm here today, but it was difficult to go through that. And once I was done with the chemotherapy, then I had to do a hysterectomy because, again, to remove all the estrogen production. And once I was done with that, I could fully go back and do the reconstruction.
You lost your hair.
I lost my hair.
You lost your breath.
I lost my breast.
But you did not lose your sanity, even though as much as you thought, I might be losing it as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the mental strain that goes through this.
I'm not sure I didn't lose my sanity yet. I have to, if we're going to keep it real,
No, listen.
We all lost a little bit of our sanity.
You might have lost it a little bit trying to regain it every day as you go by. I can only say that the mental part of it for me was probably the hardest. I was also kind of like, I don't want to say living a lie, because it was just it was the way I got through it. It was to kind of keep it very private of what I was going through. I couldn't hear all the noise. I didn't want to hear the noise, but it was a mental, on my brain. And I had to kind of keep it together for my children. That's the reality. I think if I wouldn't have had kids, I don't know how sane I would have been during the process, because it really does take a toll. What did you do to keep yourself mentally sane? Where I always say, I describe it as, have you ever worn shoes that don't fit you? And that they're so tight and you're so uncomfortable in that process that you're like, I have to take these off. I always say they're like shoes that they're uncomfortable and you can't wear them and you can't get them off. So how did you stay sane wearing uncomfortable shoes?
First of all, I don't know how you guys did this as moms, because the guilt that I felt, for some reason, I don't know if you guys felt any guilt at all, but I felt a little bit of guilt for putting my family through what I was going through. So it was a matter of just not only just trying to keep sane and be strong for myself, but I had to be strong for my family and my friends. And I also went on social media and I became like the Latina spokesperson. So I had to put up a face of like, I'm not dying, I'm okay, like everything's been fine, because I wanted to show the world what I was going through, because there wasn't Latinas talking about it at the time, right? So I felt like I had a lot of sense of responsibility that I had to be strong for other people. So I started going to therapy, honestly. MCI actually offers therapists, and I needed to go to therapy.
What a taboo as a Latina to say.
Yeah, but I had to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it wasn't even only for that, but it was also and I'm sure you guys went through it too. I was petrified that it was going to come back. petrified that they were going to find, every time I went in, they were going to find tumor marker somewhere else, or they were going to find the cancer. Oh, no, it's no longer in your breast. It's somewhere else now. So for many years after that, I mean, I'm not as petrified. I'm closer to the 10-year mark, but yeah, I'm therapy. They're 100% therapy. That's what, and my faith. I prayed a lot, and
Beautiful.
That helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, similarly to Clara, I think, there was that front, right, of making sure that the community thought that everything was going to be okay. Yeah. The kids, as I mentioned, 2 young kids. And when I started losing their hair, that's really when it became like a thing, right? Because before that, I kind of still looked the same. So mommy was okay. But then when mommy loses her hair, how do you explain that? And then as on social media, I also try to change the narrative, because in the Caribbean and Haitian community, it's definitely not something you talk about. You don't share the story. And why would you share your story? That's private, but it was important for me that parents specifically understood that it's okay to talk to your kids. I ended up writing a book also.
You did.
So families could talk about cancer in a lighthearted way, but in a direct way, because we have to say the word so that we can remove the stigma. How did I get through it, Johanna? I don't know. I can't tell you that I did something specific. It was tough. And I think it's important for people to understand. Yes, I went on social media and I looked nice and I got my makeup done. But by the way,
tough. I think that's just your brand. You are very much a very classy, always put together, always positive person. But there have to be moments that you were like hanging on a thread.
Oh, yeah.
So there's one story that I don't know if I don't share it often, but I definitely had a time where I broke down, right? And it's like this idea as women, we've got to be, as moms, as women, we've got to be strong.
Have it all together.
We have to have it all together, and we can't let people know that it's hurtful or it's tough. And then my husband too, he was so supportive and so strong. How dare I not be strong for him, right? But I remember one day, so I had to do, the injection. So when you're doing the reconstruction, you put temporary implants, right? And then you have to get saline injections. And depending on the size you want to be, that's how many injections you have to have, right? To get to that CC. And it was the toughest part of my treatment, I have to say, my journey. And I remember older women saying, don't do it. It's hard, it's painful. And I was like, no, I'm still like a young bride, still. And so I wanted to do it. But there was one day I came back from the hospital and I had gotten injections. Guys, I sat on my couch and I screamed. It was so painful. And that was the only time I think my husband ever saw me break down, but it was so painful, I
actually remember being in the parking lot here when I got diagnosed, screaming in the car, like screaming, like crazy woman screaming. And my husband was just sitting there looking at me like, oh my God, I have like lost her. And I'm like, no, because you really think at that moment, like, how could this possibly be happening?
Yeah. And it's so inconvenient. And it's so inconvenient. Right. I always say it's so inconvenient.
Yeah. What are we doing?
You know, I have a life to live. What are you doing?
I'm a good person. I try not to do, good. I try to do everything wrong. But you brought up reoccurrence. And I am curious if you are in the 10-year mark now, but if it ever just pops into your head, I can tell you honestly, every time I have something, I'm like, oh my God. Oh yeah. Oh my God.
All the time.
And I'm 7 years. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm still petrified.
All the time.
I think maybe a little PTSD, I will tell you.
I 100% have the PTSD. It's not even like a question about it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, all the time. Whatever. I get a headache.
But now that you're at this point, 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good, but it's also, you never know, so I think you always think about it. Even when I eat something and I feel guilty, I'm like, this is probably not healthy. If I eat too much of this, will I spark it again? Yeah. So you never know. It's always around,
But then you rang the bell.
Oh.
And that feeling of ringing the bell is one that you think of it. You rang it twice. Take us back to that moment.
I remember the first time I didn't know about the bell, and I was in one of my appointments and for radiation, and some girl rang the bell, and I was like, "What is that? What are they doing? What's happening?" And for the entire time that I was here in treatment, 9 months that I was coming in for active treatment, I would look at the bell and I'm like, "I'm going to ring you." And I was planning my ring bell party. I was planning it. And the first time it was amazing. I had like so many people come in and ring it, were there with me the first time. And it was when I finished my radiation. And the second time was 2 years ago when I finished my Zola, like my monthly injections. And it was when I can officially say I was cancer free. And I just came with my best friend because I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. And I cried like it was the first time. And I just felt so liberated. And the words, I would not say cancer free until I rang that second bell. And now I can say it. And now before I couldn't say it without crying. Now I can say it without crying.
Awesome.
And
Progress.
We're getting there. We're getting there. PTSD. But yeah, like that second time, like just ringing that bell is just, I don't know if it makes you guys the same too, but it's not about like yourself at that moment. It's about so many other people. I'm getting choked up. So many other people before you that rang it at the same time. And it's like, we all did it. And it's like our joy and it's our win together. And like, I'm a part of that. And it's just something that was so beautiful. And it still chokes me up, obviously.
Not fair. You're going to make us all cry.
I still choke up, obviously. But yeah, the bell was just, that bell is magical.
I rang the bell with, I actually went every Tuesday and Tamara was there with me on that process. And I rang the bell with everybody on that Tuesday. I don't really recall much, I will be honest. I'm just going to say it.
I had a whole party.
But I had I was cold capping my head and there was a lot going on.
Remember.
How was that for you? Did you ring the bell with your kids?
I did not. I actually rang the bell right after my treatment, which I don't know because then I was so weak. So the video of me ringing the bell is like I'm super weak. It's an image that I haven't gone back to look at, but I remember that day I could barely ring it because
I think you should go back.
You should go back and ring it on your 10-year mark.
Yes,
I think you should ring it on your 10-year mark.
I think you should go back just to show yourself how you've come to this point of where you are now. And with that said, how much you guys have helped so many women after the fact. That's also tough. You have women calling you, reaching out on social media, wanting to know that they are sitting in that position that you just told us about where you were, where you're scared and you don't know if you are going to live. What's your message to them? And we're going to get to your campaign. We're going to get to your book and what you guys are doing. But what's more your message for the women that call you?
I mean, the first time that whenever anybody reaches out to me and telling me that they got diagnosed, my first thing is just tell them to breathe. Because when you get diagnosed, you have so many questions and so many things and you forget to breathe. So I just tell them breathe. And then we go step by step. Cancer is not something that you're going to go through fast. It's not. But you got to go through it steady, slow and steady, and have faith and have an attitude. Something that I remember that my surgical oncologist, Dr. Jane Mendez, told me was, attitude is everything. So you have to be able to shift it in a way that it's like, this is not a death sentence. At the end of the day, there's advances being made with cancer treatment, thank God. And little by little we have great doctors, especially at MCI, at Baptist. And, so it's a matter of, just like taking a beat. Take a beat. Don't like freak out immediately. And I feel like if you breathe and you start kind of like assessing the situation and figuring out what feels right for you, because I had a choice between a mastectomy and a lumpectomy,
which, by the way, are very difficult decisions to have to make when you're not really thinking straight.
And you don't know everything at the same time.
And when you're young too, right? And you have relationships and intimacy to think about, right?
So that's a whole other podcast.
That's another podcast.
That's a whole other episode, guys.
That'll be next episode.
But yeah, I feel like that's like the message when you first get diagnosed. That's usually what I tell the girls when they reach out to me.
So for me, I like to always acknowledge that it sucks, right? Because I think, I had some family members that wanted to be cheerleaders from day one. And I think it's important to be a cheerleader. 100%. But I also think it's important to say, you know what, I'm sorry. And this really sucks, right? Because we have to, we're humans and it's painful and it's hard to wrap our heads around it. But then it's like, okay, cry it out. And then you're going to put the boxing gloves on and we're going to war.
Exactly somebody told me I have to put my big girl pants on and get through this.
That's what it is.
That's what she told me.
Put the gloves and go to battle, right? But take the time, like you said, take the time to breathe, understand that it sucks. However, like you said, there's been so many advancements that if you are diagnosed, if you're diagnosed early, there's so much hope. There's so many treatments. Like you said, MCI, so much. For every type of breast cancer, every type of cancer, age, stages, and all that. So there's tremendous hope, but it is about first acknowledging the pain, the hurt, the confusion for me, the embarrassment. I cannot explain to you why I had that feeling.
I felt the same way.
But it was like embarrassed, like, oh, what did I do, right?
I felt the same way.
But once you get through that, there's hope. So that's my message.
Since you are at the 10-year mark, do you feel that cancer shaped you?
For sure. For sure, without a doubt. I think I've always been confident as an individual, as a woman, never felt limitations. Always thought that I could if I ever was faced with a challenge. I think cancer made me realize that I actually am strong, right? I used to think that I was strong, now I know that I'm strong.
Beautiful. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a way that it's changed me.
Beautiful.
Clara, before we go, I just want to talk about your campaign, what you do every month. You remind us about early detection, raising awareness. Did you always know this was something you wanted to do and had to do?
Listen, like when I got diagnosed, crazy. I was diagnosed in September, and my first surgery was September 28th. And obviously October 1st was around the corner. I was laying in my bed on October 1st. I'm like, wait, there's God, you're talking to me here? What are you trying to say? And I started looking for women like me, Latinas under 40 that had breast cancer, and I did not find one. And I felt a sense of responsibility. And I started doing research, and I realized that it was the number one cause of death in Latinas under 40 because we do not talk about it. My grandmother told me, do not tell anybody. Right? So it's like this is stigma. The same with and so to me, I just felt a sense of responsibility. I'm like, I have a decent amount of following. Let me just go out there and start spreading the word. And for some reason, my campaign blew up overnight.
By the way, you're saying Latinas, but also the Black community also
100%
is reaching out to you and follows you. And you
It started with Latinas, but now it's just women under 40 pretty much. And any women at this point. Even boyfriends reach out to me that their girlfriends got diagnosed or sisters or wives. And, it's beautiful to see that a campaign that's so little because people think about us on October.
Right.
And breast cancer is not about only in October. Breast cancer is every single month. We have to think about it every single month. So I felt a sense of responsibility to remind us every month that we have to check ourselves. We have to know our bodies, and the campaign took a life of its own. And I'm just so grateful for it. And it's saved lives, believe it. It's insane to think that it's actually saved women's lives.
What do you want to do with the campaign in the future?
I would love to start a nonprofit. I don't have the time. So I joined, I'm on the board of the Breasties now. So we've joined together to join the Toca Tocarte campaign with the Breasties. And we're doing it together because I need an army. I can't do this on my own.
Right, yeah, it's a lot.
And also I don't want to be the face of it by myself. There's new faces every day, unfortunately and fortunately. Like I always say, it's the worst club, but it has the best members.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that.
It's the worst club, but it has the best members.
You wrote a book, a children's book. Yes. It's phenomenal. We have it at my house. A couple of them. Yeah. Are you going to write a book in the future? What are your plans to just continue the conversation and to help and raise awareness?
Yeah, I think it's continuing the conversation, right? Because it's still taboo. Even though we think we've made a lot of advancements, we really haven't. There's still a lot of people that suffer in silence. Black women have the highest mortality rate in the United States when it comes to breast cancer. And part of it is because we don't talk about it and that we don't explain that there's resources there. So for me, I'm using my voice to continue the conversation.
What would you say right now to the women watching, one thing that you want them to be aware of?
For me, it's early detection saves lives. Like it's so, we can't say it enough, right? Yeah. Because we were both stage 1, but in my case, it was aggressive. If I had waited, who knows what could have happened? So it's just knowing that early detection does truly save lives.
Yeah. I found 3 tumors by early detection by myself, just like you guys.
Te toca tocarte para que no te toque.
There you go. What can I say? This has been a pleasure being with you, ladies. It's hard to relive these stories again. It takes you back to those feelings. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it because, it was a hard moment in our lives, but every day we continue to add wonderful things to it. So the fact that you decided to come and sit down with us here, with all our viewers and listeners, to kind of remind them of your journey, but for them to learn, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart for really making a change. You're wonderful. Both of you.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your insight. Don't forget, for all of you watching, that subscribe button on our channel here to help with the latest health and wellness information. We've got got tips from our experts there. Thank you so much for watching, and be safe.
Find additional valuable health and wellness information on our resource blog at baptisthealth.net/news. And be sure to interact with us on our social media channels for live and upcoming events. Baptist Health Talk is brought to you by Baptist Health, the warmer side of care.